Hello and welcome to this Business of Horses. I'm Amanda, and in today's episode we'll be focusing our discussions around business support and business solutions. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome and introduce you to John McDonald, who is Director of Equine Business Consultancy and also Director of the BHS highly commended Rein and Shine Equestrian Centre. John, hi, lovely to have you with us today.
Yeah, hi, likewise. Nice to see you, Amanda.
Super stuff. Now, to get us started, can you tell us just a little bit more about what it is that Equine Business Consultancy does in the sector and why you started the business?
Yeah, of course, that's not a problem. So really, we set up kind of the clues in the name. Is we're in a consultancy service that assess and helps equine businesses and advises equine businesses. And we started this a couple of years ago with regard to the fact that we've got a passion for the sector, and that passion I saw from my own experience as an outsider looking in from EBC's point of view and from running a centre. Is that grassroots riding centres have been struggling, and that's even pre-COVID. There were a lot of businesses that were struggling, and although there might be a bit of a bounce now, then I fear that will continue. And we were seeing a lot of a high level of closures throughout the sector, and I put this once even to the BHS, and that they said yes, they can see that the sector is obviously struggling for many reasons. So it kind of affirmed our view that there might be a number of centres out there that could do with our assistance, do with our experience, and any business, the biggest businesses in the world employ consultants, as you'll probably know, because not only is it a whole business that might need some guidance, but there are certain parts of a business or certain functions within a business that also need maybe advice and guidance. And we present a management team that is very diverse in not only the equine field, but also in other industries and sectors. So we bring a lot of experience to business consultancy with specific guidance in the equine sector. And I was kind of talking to some people locally even recently, and they said, oh, if someone closes down, that's great, that's more business for us. Well, that's a fairly short-term view of looking at a business sector, because if too many businesses close down, people lose enthusiasm for the sector and the sector goes into a terminal decline. Now, I liken it a bit to, there might be a street in your town or city or village that's got a few pubs and restaurants. You go there perhaps because there are a few pubs and restaurants. If you've got to drive 10 miles just to go to a pub or a restaurant, then you may not go there unless it's particularly good because you like the variety. People like varieties. Look at the coffee shop explosion. There are several coffee shops in each high street. So people go there because there's a bit of a buzz about it. So if a region or an area is thriving in the equine world, then there will be diversity. There will be different things to do. There will be different experiences that can be had. So competition improves overall demand generally, and that's true in any business sector. So ultimately, in answer to your question, I think it really is a case of being concerned for the sector, wanting to assist in the sector, and trying to make the equine sector a better place generally and more healthy in terms of its profitability.
Brilliant, which is, absolutely critical, isn't it, as you say, for its survival. And yeah. As you also say, not every centre is going to be able to offer the services for every particular client. You'll all have specialisms and you'll all need to pull in those different clients. So having that busy atmosphere, as you say, is so important. And again, it's not just a COVID thing, is it? This is something that's been happening over quite some years, which is a real shame, because it's the basis of our entire sport. People don't get to Tokyo without having the facilities there in the first place to start.
Yeah, and it's like some sectors, the top end, there's money in it. The top end, people do very well. But as you rightly say, the grassroots sector is where this all begins. You look at any sport or pastime or hobby, and the grassroots sector is the one that really captures the imagination of the public generally, as well as providing a tremendous recreational activity for the population at large. So absolutely, it's difficult.
So, which sort of sectors in the equine world can sort of especially benefit from your knowledge and your obvious experience running a facility yourselves?
Yeah, so there's probably 4 or 5 main sectors, I would say. Startups are key because we want new blood coming into the sector. There are a lot of centres that have been around a long time. Managers and owners are sort of getting older, a bit like myself. But at the same time, new blood coming into any sector is obviously important, because that people bring new ideas and new ways of doing things. So we assist startups, and that can be anything from fundraising, talking about how to acquire land and buildings. It could be about rental agreements if they're looking to rent facilities, and then all the various business functions, how to start up, how to get a new business going, how to set up the structure, how to recruit, train, marketing, sales, business development, strategy, finance, all of those sorts of things, because without any one of those things, those startups will fail. And we all know that startups, are more at risk, generally speaking. And then existing centres. Now, existing centres, a lot of people say, oh, it's doing very well, I'm happy with what I'm doing. That's great. But, the old adage, if you stand still, you'll go backwards. So people do need to change and adapt to the sector. And those existing riding centres can include livery yards, riding schools, competition and event yards, even racing yards. We were dealing with a racing yard recently, and they had this fabulous outside view from the world, which said what great horses, and they win lots of races. But the yard itself was run appallingly. Not from a welfare standpoint, but from an organisational and operational standpoint. And the people there just say, oh, we'll sell another horse, so we'll bring in more fees just to cover those costs. Well, if they looked at their cost base internally, they could have saved themselves a good deal of money, and in fact did. So it's any obviously, you've got a horse with stables, it's still going to have the same needs and the same requirements and the same running costs, generally speaking. Some horses more than others. But, probably the main sector for us is going to be the livery school, riding yards, local competition centres and yards and so on, tuition centres, which are looking to expand or grow or stop declining, or even try and stop closing. So startups and existing centres. A couple of other areas. We also advise on business sales and exits. Now, one of our missions, if you like, is to stop businesses closing and support them and help them grow back up again. But eventually people may want to sell their business, and there's a myriad reasons why that would be. But if people do want to get out of the business or exit, a lot of people think, okay, I've got X amount of acres and a house, great, that's valued at X, Y, and Z, which my local estate agent has valued. What they forget about is the business itself has a value. If you've got a rented yard, you don't just walk away from it when the lease runs out or the rental agreement. You've got a business there that can be valued and that can be bought or sold. And so people can move on and reap the benefit of all the hard work they've put in, because it is obviously extremely hard work. Another interesting area that we're seeing is farm diversification. Now, farmers have been diversifying for donkey's years, and obviously, there are some farmers who aren't particularly keen on horses, let's say, but there are those which are more pragmatic. And if you've got a farmer with, say, a B&B on his land, or a campsite or something, he's already made that, sort of judgment to allow public on his land, and that's one of the biggest hurdles that a farmer's got to overcome. If you think about it, if you've got a building, you can put a few stables in, chuck a few logs down in a field, and you've got yourself a cross-country course, and you can start selling riding holidays. So farm diversification can be anything from just the very basics right the way through to building a new centre on site. Maybe someone in the family is less keen on the farming, but is actually quite interested in riding and equestrian. What we can provide is the tools to that person to say, okay, you've got the land and buildings, which, let's face it, is the biggest hurdle to any startup. you've got the land and buildings, let's advise on a bit of layout, how to run an equine yard, and the farmer knows how to look after the land, generally speaking. That goes without saying. So setting up a business on a farm environment is actually a very exciting prospect, and the cost to get into that is actually very low. You know, the barrier to entry is very low on that side of things. So those are the main areas: startups, existing centres, farm diversification, and then business sales and exits.
So the whole myriad, really. So as you say, whether or not you're thinking about coming into the sector, whether or not you're already an existing business, there's a whole raft of skills you've got there that can help better the whole sector and better these businesses in terms of the way that they're managed. And let's face it, a lot of the time people come into the horse world because they're passionate about the animal. They're not necessarily passionate about or terribly knowledgeable potentially in sort of the running of a commercial facility. So
yep.
having that expertise, that outside expertise, I think is absolutely critical for these businesses to thrive and to prosper, and as you say, to continue to grow and continue.
Indeed, yeah.
Now, we've mentioned COVID, and obviously an awful lot of us have felt challenged over the last sort of year or 18 months in one way or another. But why do you think that now, specifically now, might be a great time to sort of start or grow an equestrian business?
There's quite a number of reasons, actually, to be honest. First of all, demand. We mentioned that supply is decreasing, but demand is also increasing. So if you've got a reducing supply and an increasing demand, when is a better time to start a business? The supply is decreasing for the reasons I've said. The demand is increasing. People are looking at, we've heard a lot in the news and everything about staycations. That is true this year. It's probably true next year. How long that goes on for, I don't know. But whatever the demand is that it's outdoors, healthy and exciting. And that's what people are looking for. They're looking for that alternative, something different to do. And I know from my own experience where we get people coming along all the time and literally just walking in off the road, as it were, and saying, "Oh, can I go and ride a horse, please?" Doesn't quite work like that, of course, but the demand is definitely there, and I know that for a fact. I've seen it at other centres, and it's all over different reports and podcasts and things that you can go into. The other interesting thing is, and I'll give you one statistic because I hate the things, but there's one that might be pertinent. BETA do a national equestrian survey, or carry out a national equestrian survey every 5 years, which covers all of the equestrian sectors, even retail. And horse ownership has proved to be in demand. And their latest survey, which albeit was a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, there's no reason why that shouldn't continue now, is that 22% of ex-riders cannot get back into riding due to not having access to a horse. 22% of ex-riders equates to 1 million riding people. Now, if you look at that across the country, that's still a lot of people per county or per region that should be attracted. And the reason that's happening is partly because of the decline, partly because actually horse prices are extremely expensive at the moment, as any horse owner may have noticed. But it's not only having access to a horse, it's having access to facilities which meet a higher standard now. Back in my day, people would turn up and keep a horse in a muddy field with a wooden shed and go riding every now and again, or go to a local riding centre that looked as if it was falling down. And sadly, some of those places still exist, but and that's not necessarily their fault. But people are a bit more discerning now. People want to go to a nice place that's clean, tidy. You can get a hot drink, you can stay out of the rain. And it becomes something which becomes a leisure activity rather than just a rather niche specialist hobby, if you like, or sport. That said as well, people are looking for a diversity of activities. And again, there's a diminishing supply. Now, centres can either set themselves up alongside other centres in their region and say, okay, well, that one's offering X, we'll offer Y, and over there we'll offer Z. So people can go to an area to get the diversity. Or we would often advise, why not diversify as much as possible within your own centre? So offer lots of different things. It's got to be strategic and planned, and I'll come on to that. But now is a great time because people are looking for diversity of activities when they go and carry out either their existing riding or they're new to it and want to do something a little bit different each time they come. There's also, sadly, you know, a lot of jobs around at the moment, and we know that, but then there's not as much as there used to be, but there is an availability of employees. Equine colleges are seeing huge numbers of enrolments at the moment, and those people will churn out. They will eventually become the staff of our future. So the employees, starting maybe even at apprenticeship level or even straight in at a higher level, they will become our managers of the future. They will become our business owners of the future. So those people are the future of the grassroots riding industry. Also, another reason why it's good is because land investment, particularly agricultural land or equestrian land, is secure. So the investment is not a risky one. It's not like piling your life savings into a .com or a tech startup that may or may not work. You know, if you've got the brains to do a tech startup, good luck to you, but certainly I haven't. But it's important that people realise it's quite a risk-free enterprise. The asset value will increase. It's up to the business owner to make sure the business doesn't go under as a result, and that's again where we can come in. And I mentioned farm diversification. You know, farmers, they're seeing reducing farm supplements and payments. There's been no grants available since Brexit, not that anyone can make sense of, and there won't be anything material coming out really over the next year or two. So, you know, in terms of diminishing supply and increasing demand, that is the main reason why starting an equestrian business now is a great opportunity.
Fantastic. I mean, it sounds, you know, such an exciting time and such a huge opportunity for so many people. As you mentioned, those students coming out of college, what a fantastic time to be able to come out and actually take a really good grasp of a business or start up their own business. And also for those who are already owning facilities, you know, you've got some phenomenal things that you can add on to your businesses these days. And I mean, even to the point of thinking about the other people who come along with those who ride, you know, how can you make those people comfortable whilst they're waiting for the people who are riding, you know, and add on bits and pieces. So as you say, it's really an incredibly exciting time. So how would you suggest an existing equestrian business sort of take their vision, if they have a vision, or if they've spoken to you and you give them vision, how are they going to be able to take that sort of to the next level?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you put a good word in there, which is vision. A lot of equestrian businesses had an idea, you know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they stuck with it, and that vision hasn't changed. So the first thing is to re-establish the vision you've got. Re-establish the vision for your business and see what your business currently offers and what it can offer. And I mentioned a couple of times before about the sort of more discerning customer these days, and developing a customer service culture is so important. Before you do anything to your business, look at your own business first, talk to others and say, what do we feel like? What sort of feedback are we getting? Are we running a good customer service business that people will want to come to? Because the first thing that you need to understand about your own business is the customer service level good? Is the service culture high? Do all of the staff deliver the culture that I want them to deliver for me? And then manage that culture and feed that down so customers have a positive view. And then obviously that will bring more customers and retain existing customers. And I always say the easiest way to get more income is put your prices up. The amount of centres I go to where they are frightened to increase pricing because it might upset, you know, the lady that's been with them 20 years and the horses, you know, she's not got much money and I can't really do that to her. But pricing has to go up. All of our costs are going through the roof. Minimum wage has gone up way above inflation rates over the last few years. Feed costs, bedding costs. Look at the hay and straw costs that we've seen this year particularly. So costs go up. Understand your costs and put your prices up. but at the same time increase your service level so people are seeing better value for money. So that's not necessarily an opportunity, but it's the first place I always look. Are you charging enough for the service that you offer to your customers and your future customers? Before you look to expand your business, again, you need to go back to your vision, but also look at making sure that any expansion you do is complementary to your existing business, and talk to your customers. If you're going to change things or expand things, don't necessarily ask for their opinion, because you'll get, if you've got 20 horses on the yard, you'll have 20 different opinions. So particularly from horsey people, of course. I would suggest that you talk to your customers, explain what you're going to do, why it's going to be good for them, and explain to them that obviously as a business you need to grow, and most people want to be associated with a healthy, strong, growing business. So if you are going to expand, develop a range of complementary services, develop a range of complementary revenue lines, which in turn minimizes your risk. But they must be complementary to your existing services, because you don't want to alienate one side of the business before then diversify onto another, because then you leave that other part of the business behind, and you then start to create problems. And people are in this business. It's a people business. So you've got to have the team for the future. You've got to develop, hopefully, what one might be unique skills compared to your competition. So you've got something different that you can offer. And don't be frightened to think, oh, I can't do that, or you know, I'm not sure if my yard manager would know how to cope with it. You can train people, you can retrain people, you can bring in new skills, you can broaden those skills, and put more depth into the business. So having more skills in the business is always important. It's always important for any business, but particularly a people business like equestrian businesses. So having made the decision that you want to diversify and grow your business, the other aspect then is, I've seen businesses where they put in some fantastic facilities, or they've got a fantastic service proposition, but no one knows about it. So marketing and promotion, as you'll know, Amanda, marketing and promotion is extremely important. And some people aren't very good at that. They've got great ideas, but don't know how to promote it. Some people are fantastic at marketing, but haven't got the ideas behind it in terms of what the business can offer. And I always say, look to monetize your business. Yards that you've probably been to as well, I'm sure, you might see there are 3 muck heaps in somewhere. You might see there's a massive car park with no one in it. You might see that there are empty spaces around the yard and corners where there's old rusting bits of equipment and machinery. Not only does that look unsightly, but it's actually an opportunity, because if you can put a few extra stables in there, or a round pen, or I don't know, a tack shop, or a cafe, or all sorts of different things. You know, there are always areas in a yard that you can increase the revenue, and look at every square inch of your yard to see if there's anything that you can do to create revenue from it. Because if it's not creating revenue, then actually you're not going to be able to expand, and you're not making the most of the opportunity you've got. So monetize your business, diversify what you're doing, in line with complementary to the services you offer. The other things which I think are sometimes forgotten, everything revolves around the horse. There is a plethora of technology that's now available for equine businesses to tap into. And if the technology improves your back office, it will improve service differentiation. And that can bring transformational costs to a business, because if you can improve the cost base of your business, or increase the revenue through your business without increasing your cost base, then through technology, then you've got a winner. And that, you know, using technology can unlock a sort of a sustainable and profitable growth path that a lot of businesses don't look at, because it's all about the horse. And technology, you can't run an equestrian yard with technology. There's no such thing. Well, that's just not true, because I do it. I've seen it done in other centres. And technology can bring cost savings as well, and it's cost effective. It's not as expensive as people think. And the other thing is, which involves more of a sort of financial management standpoint, is consider the entities you're using. So a lot of people set up it's a them and their partner, or husband and wife, or mother and daughter, So there could be just a little kind of sole trader thing going on, or a little partnership. But consider limited companies, obviously. Consider charities or community interest companies. So if you set up a not-for-profit organisation, you can get access to grants. And although there's less around at the moment, they will come back. And setting up a not-for-profit organisation within your structure takes a bit of time and takes a bit of work, but it can be quite rewarding. And you can get, we personally had, hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of grants because we've got not-for-profit organisation within our structure. If you can have VAT exempt or VAT or business within your structure that is below the VAT threshold, obviously legally and through accounting, good accounting principles and through an accountant's approval, then that can save you a lot of money. And I get asked quite a lot by people in the livery business and riding school, oh, we're hitting the threshold of about 85,000. Do you think it's worth me expanding? Well, yes, it is. I mean, why just because the government puts a limit on VAT, why shouldn't you grow your business to 200,000, in which case the VAT becomes irrelevant? But if you can have a £200,000 business with no VAT, because there are certain elements within it that are exempt, then you're suddenly improving your profit margins by 20%. So who wouldn't take a 20% increase to their profits? I know I would any time if we could. So
alone.
No, well, quite. I'm sure I wouldn't. So those tools are there. So again, don't just look at expanding and saying, oh, we need more horses, which needs more fields, which needs more fencing and all that cost. You can save money through technology, and you can improve your profitability through changing the structure of your business. And I know from our standpoint, we've got 5 different entities within our structure, all of which take advantage of different tax rules and tax legislation, which improves profits, saves tax, etc., etc.
So again, it's you're very much here, talking about being able to enable people who have a passion for horses to run their businesses more effectively.
And that's where often people, they're fantastic at looking after horses. They might be fantastic relationship with their customers and their staff, but there's lots of other things that they can look at. And I guess as a summary of all that, I would just say, make sure that you are the best at what you do and charge more for it. And, all of that I've just said, comes at that before that, of course.
Absolutely. Pricing is critical for any business. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And can be a game changer, complete game changer.
Yeah, and never kind of match yourself to the competition. Get them to match you, get them to catch up with you rather than the other way around. Otherwise, if you're just reducing your price by 10 quid a week for a livery yard or £5 on a lesson, the one down the road will undercut you and you'll go into a downward spiral. I don't care if we're the most expensive. That's great, because if I'm the most expensive and I've got a full livery yard, great.
Yeah. You price appropriate to the service that you provide, not the service that everyone else is providing. It's about you as a business. So it's
absolutely right.
Sort of looking around sort of opportunities, are there opportunities that sort of equestrian business may not have seen yet, may not have thought about?
I think so. I mean, I think some of it I've probably covered a little bit. Certainly the structure and the technology side of things. But I would say that look at what the competition are doing, but also look outside that. Now, I sort of did a bit tongue-in-cheek on staycation just beforehand, but I know for a fact that if you run camps, let's say, you can run riding camps in the summer holidays and the school holidays, and there's lots of different ways of doing that. It can be like 2 or 3 days on site. It could be where you've got local schools or colleges using you, for example. But there are lots of opportunities now, and government legislation is more free with the allowances, where you can put residential accommodation on your land. And what I mean by that is holiday accommodation. And that can be anything from a campsite to glamping pods. Some of these glamping sites now are incredibly luxurious. It's like a hotel room in the middle of a field. And turn your camps into residential camps. So you're not just running a camp, in the school holidays. You can run them 52 weeks of the year, literally, even over Christmas if you wanted to. So running those can be very profitable and can be a new dimension to your business and put your business in a different sector, even from what you are currently. So consider that side of things. And every yard has got a spare field somewhere which is a bit rough. You know, have it smoothed off, plant a few hedges, stick a few camping pods or glamping pods in there, and they will pay dividends, and you'll get an ROI on those of probably around 2 to 2.5 years if you do it properly.
Fantastic.
So there's one thing, but you know, it really is a case of looking at what you want for your business, because I appreciate that a lot of people live on site, and if you live on site, it's people coming to your home. So you may not fancy a Billy Smart circus or a fairground in the middle of your field, and I don't blame you. But do look at all the obvious things. I've seen sites that run open air cinemas, for example, in the summer, where you can bring in, you can get 50, 60 cars in a field, particularly during COVID. That was always an attraction. You can put on some movies and then hand out your leaflets and tell everyone what you do and how you do it. That increases your catchment area, because people will drive a long way to those places if there's not many around. They're more popular now, but always be open to new ideas. And I could go on all day about the number of different ways that businesses could diversify. But the key thing is, going back to that, is make sure you have done your research, your market research. Make sure it complements your existing business and doesn't sort of blow it apart in the process, and make sure your customer retention will stay. But there are many, many ways that you can create revenue from these businesses. Brilliant.
No, that's really super. And sort of looking, not that I want to take you away from Equine Business Consultancy, but looking outside EBC, where do you suggest business owners should go to get sort of good advice and resources for improving their businesses?
Well, being flippant, there's not much hands-on practical management advice for equestrian businesses. I know when I started years ago, I'd never been in the equestrian world before. It was my lovely wife that dragged me into it, but I'm glad she did. But it was in other businesses I've been in. There's lots of sort of professionals and consultants that focus on that sector. There's not many in the equestrian world. There's lots of sort of accountants and land agents and marketing specialists and so on and so forth, but not one consultancy that does that. But if you are going to consider either getting into this or expanding it, then, for example, speak to other equine professionals. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, so get their views on things. You don't have to take up their view, but get their view and get their opinions, so you've got a wide range of thought. Using people who have got experience and knowledge is invaluable, and always has been, because that helps you avoid the pitfalls. You can get your fingers burned very easily. If it takes you a long time to get to where you want to be, you could have shortcut that potentially by using a consultant or a professional, because although the upfront cost is there, it's cheaper than making long-term mistakes, and always will be. So find advisors with equestrian knowledge, choose an accountant with equestrian knowledge, choose a marketing specialist who's got equestrian knowledge, and not just the fact that they can ride a horse necessarily, but they understand the sector and the market they're in. Accountants particularly, if we're going back to the sort of tax and structure situation, because they understand the sector. And also talk to people who understand cash flow, because managing cash in our sector, in any sector, but particularly the equine sector, where margins can be very low, then talk to people on that score as well. So getting the best advice is I haven't got a list of people, although I can help to advise people if people wanted to contact us. But it's all about choosing the right help and the right advice.
Well, and it's
bringing you good managers on. Sorry, Amanda. Yeah, bringing good managers on board that understand it.
Yeah, it's almost qualified advice, isn't it? It's having an expertise in a specific area, being able to apply that to a really diverse and often difficult sector. I'm incredibly passionate about equestrianism. However, it's hard work, and as you say, getting the right advice about areas that you may not have strengths in is absolutely critical. Know your weaknesses and find someone who can stop that gap for you. I think is really important, isn't it?
For sure, absolutely.
No, well, John, I mean, I could listen to you all day, and I'm sure that there'll be many businesses, facilities-led businesses out there who are listening and are absolutely dying to pick your brains further, because it's sort of the tip of the iceberg, which is very mean of us, I think, in some ways. But in terms of sort of those businesses who do want to get in touch with you, are you able to have a chat with them? What can you offer them initially, and more importantly, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Okay, well, first of all, our website, which is ebcpro.co.uk. You'll find email addresses and phone numbers on there. Or if you want to write it down now, it's 01666 86 0005. Pick up the phone, ask for me. We don't charge by the minute kind of thing by the time you pick up the phone. Happy to have a chat with you for 20 minutes or half an hour about what you're looking to achieve, what your thoughts are, what the problems are, where you see there's a bit of pain in your business that needs a headache pill, those sorts of things, and have a chat, and then we can talk about what might work for you. And we can do certain things through just the desktop. We can come out and see you, unlike some consultants will visit site and have a chat. And we don't charge as much as other professionals, in the sort of accounting and legal world. But we do charge for our services, but ultimately just pick up the phone, have a chat, and if we can help you, we'd be delighted if we can.
Oh no, that's really super. So it's all the w's.ebcpro.co.uk.
Yeah.
The phone number 01666 860 0005, and ask for John. Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely fantastic, John. Again, thank you so much for your time. Huge insight and inspiration, I'm sure, for so many people. Yeah, as I say, just get in touch with John. We're coming to the end of this episode, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll look forward to catching up with everyone again soon for the next edition of Business of Horses. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.